Hollywood's golden age sold us glamorous smiles, red carpets, and pure stardom. But what if I told you that some of those beloved faces were hiding more than just love affairs? Behind the glitz, a few of your favorite icons were living double lives as actual criminals. We're not talking about playing the villain on screen. We're talking real-life arrests, scandals, and cover-ups so wild the studios nearly lost their minds. Curious who got away with what? Buckle up. The truth isn't just shocking, it's absolutely addictive. Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn was the poster boy for adventure, the dashing rogue with a wicked grin and a knack for trouble. But his real-life reputation as Hollywood's wildest bad boy wasn't just gossip. In the early 1940s, Flynn faced a very public trial that nearly ended his career. The studio's army of fixers swept into action, spinning the headlines and working overtime to save their cash cow. The jury found him not guilty, but the rumors and whispers stuck with him forever. And that was just the tip of the iceberg. Flynn was arrested in England for fighting in nightclubs, investigated for illegal hunting on a South American island, and accused of dodging taxes across several countries. For all his heroic roles, Flynn played the part of real-life troublemaker to perfection, constantly testing the limits of what Hollywood could bury. Off-camera, he was the living embodiment of his wildest roles, brash, reckless, and just a little bit dangerous. So, was he a legend, or just another outlaw in a tuxedo? Maybe both. Robert Mitchum. When Robert Mitchum played tough guys and outlaws on screen, he wasn't exactly stretching. In 1948, Mitchum was arrested at a party for marijuana possession, a charge that could have ended any other star's career. But Mitchum handled it with a shrug, famously telling reporters, "It's just that I got caught." Hollywood panicked. Studios called in every favor to reduce his sentence and keep the story out of the headlines. Mitchum did time in a prison farm, then walked straight back onto a movie set as if nothing happened. Audiences loved him even more for it. But that wasn't the end. He picked up drunk and disorderly charges more than once, and there were whispers of bar fights and dust-ups that never reached the press. Through it all, Mitchum kept his cool. Maybe that's why he became the original bad boy template. He proved that sometimes, being a criminal just adds to your legend, at least if you're Robert Mitchum. Judy Garland. Judy Garland seemed untouchable as America's sweetheart, but her off-screen story was far messier. Battling career pressures and personal demons, Garland turned to prescription pills, not just using them, but forging scripts and borrowing drugs wherever she could. Friends described her raiding medicine cabinets and even swiping pills from hospital carts. On more than one occasion, she was caught by authorities with stolen prescriptions and fraudulent documents. Studios rushed in to pay off pharmacists and keep the headlines clean, but the paper trail never fully vanished. Garland's talent was matched only by her ability to bounce back from one disaster after another. But every comeback carried the shadow of her criminal acts. For Judy, the yellow brick road was lined with trouble, and sometimes the biggest danger wasn't the wicked witch, it was the law, waiting just off stage. Fatty Arbuckle. Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle was silent film's king of slapstick and its first major cautionary tale. In 1921, Arbuckle was accused of a shocking crime at a wild party, a scandal that ripped through Hollywood. He faced 3 trials, each more chaotic than the last. Even though Arbuckle was found not guilty, the damage was done. Studios pulled his films, press coverage was relentless, and public opinion turned overnight. Arbuckle's name was smeared, and though he'd later find work under a different name, the scandal followed him for life. But here's the secret Hollywood doesn't tell. Much of the case was built on sensational headlines, not facts. Studios worked overtime to scrub evidence and silence witnesses, but the scandal exposed the cracks in Hollywood's polished image. Arbuckle went from Hollywood hero to industry outcast in a flash, proving that a criminal accusation, guilty or not, could ruin anyone. Clara Bow. Clara Bow lit up the screen as Hollywood's it girl, but behind the scenes, her life was pure drama. Bow grew up poor, scrappy, and determined to never go back. When the money rolled in, so did the trouble. She was accused of writing bad checks, dodging debts, and even helping friends escape legal trouble by hiding them in her mansion. Investigators poked into her finances, and a former assistant accused her of stealing jewelry and covering up all kinds of mischief. The studios circled the wagons, cutting checks to make problems disappear and spinning stories about misunderstandings. But the rumors stuck. Clara's rebellious streak kept the cops and Hollywood bosses on their toes. Maybe that's why she always felt like an outsider, even at the top. Bow's story proves that in Hollywood, it didn't just mean talent. Sometimes it meant knowing how to break the rules and survive the fallout. Wallace Reid. Wallace Reid was one of silent cinema's golden boys, the clean-cut, handsome heartthrob every studio wanted on their marquee. But behind the wheel, Reid's need for speed got him into trouble. In 1919, a terrible car crash left him with injuries and a secret addiction to morphine, prescribed for the pain. As his dependency deepened, Reid was caught driving under the influence on more than one occasion, sometimes crashing cars and running afoul of the law. The studios scrambled, cleaning up the paperwork and paying off officials to keep his record clear and his image untarnished. But the pattern was impossible to hide forever. Reid's increasingly erratic behavior and brushes with the law signaled a personal crisis that even Hollywood couldn't fix. He remains a tragic example of how the pursuit of stardom and a little too much time behind the wheel can turn a screen idol into a cautionary tale. Lya Lys, the starlet in the poisoned web. Lya Lys was known for her glowing presence in silent films and early talkies, but in the real world, she was tangled in one of Hollywood's most sensational scandals. In the 1930s, Lys was swept up in a headline-grabbing poisoning case that involved blackmail, affairs, and even the mysterious death of her boyfriend. She was questioned by police, accused of withholding information, and at one point suspected of being involved in the crime itself. The studio's fixers pulled out all the stops, scrubbing her name from the worst of the news and leveraging every connection to keep her career alive. The public never got the full story, but in the shadows of Hollywood, Lys's name became synonymous with danger and intrigue. Her story is a reminder that sometimes the juiciest roles aren't on the screen, they're playing out in real life, just out of sight. Carole Landis. Carole Landis dazzled audiences with her beauty and wit, but her real legacy might be the secrets she kept and threatened to spill. Landis's name came up more than once in connection to blackmail cases, especially involving a notorious Hollywood extortion ring. She was accused of helping a mobster collect compromising information on big-name stars, then using those secrets to squeeze money and favors out of the industry's elite. The cases were quietly dropped, witnesses forgot details, and Landis continued landing roles. Yet, her reputation as a fixer and silent power broker lingered long after. In a world obsessed with image, Landis became a reminder that sometimes the greatest power comes from knowing what everyone else is desperate to hide. Was she a criminal mastermind, or just someone in the wrong place at the right time? Either way, her story is pure Hollywood noir. Gig Young. Gig Young was an Oscar-winning actor with a charming screen persona, but behind the charm was a man with a talent for trouble. Young was arrested multiple times for public fights and disorderly conduct, especially after a few too many drinks. He was even charged with assault on one occasion, but every time, the studios sent in their lawyers, paid fines, and kept the papers quiet. Young's off-screen reputation for brawling was well known in certain circles, but to the public, he was just another leading man. It's a classic case of Hollywood putting a velvet rope around bad behavior, as long as you kept delivering at the box office. For Gig Young, the true drama was always off-camera, and he proved you could win an Oscar while dodging real-life charges at the same time. Peter Lorre. Peter Lorre was famous for playing creepy villains and mysterious masterminds, but his off-screen antics were sometimes just as sketchy. In the 1940s and 50s, Lorre was repeatedly caught shoplifting from upscale stores in Beverly Hills in New York. At least once, he tried to bribe his way out of trouble, slipping cash to a police officer and hoping his fame would do the rest. The cases never made headlines, thanks to studio interference and a willingness to lose certain files. But the stories trickled out, giving Lorre a reputation among insiders as someone who liked to live dangerously, even when no cameras were rolling. Whether it was a bottle of cologne or a diamond trinket, Lorre's petty crimes made him the villain in more ways than one. His legend lives on as proof that sometimes the creepiest stories are the ones nobody dares to tell. Tallulah Bankhead. Tallulah Bankhead wasn't just a scene stealer, she was a one-woman tornado tearing through old Hollywood. Famous for her quick wit and wild parties, Bankhead's real-life adventures often landed her in police custody. There are records of her being hauled off for reckless driving. She loved tearing through the streets of Los Angeles in the dead of night, more than once ending up in a holding cell after being clocked at dangerous speeds. Her legendary hotel stays often ended with management calling the cops when items walked away with her. She never hesitated to make a scene, whether that meant tossing furniture out a window or shouting at strangers who annoyed her. The public only saw the outrageous headlines, never the police reports or the scramble behind the scenes to keep her name off the front page. Studio lawyers worked overtime to smooth things over, sometimes paying off authorities and hotel managers to make the problems disappear. Tallulah treated every scrape with the law like a badge of honor. Her parties were rowdy, her circle was famous, and her disregard for rules only grew her legend. She proved that in the world of Hollywood, trouble was just another way to steal the spotlight. Lionel Atwill. Lionel Atwill was born to play the villain, with a chilling stare and a voice that could freeze a room. But the most shocking plot twist of his career happened off-camera in a real courtroom. In 1942, Atwill found himself at the center of a grand jury investigation, probing illegal activities and wild parties at his home that had attracted unwanted attention from authorities. Called to testify, Atwill decided to outact the law and lied under oath about the goings-on. The authorities didn't buy it. He was convicted of perjury, one of the most serious charges an actor of the era could face. The court fined him heavily, and the story was almost buried by a wave of studio hush-ups. But the damage was done. Overnight, Atwill's A-list career was toast. Big studios dropped him, and his name quietly disappeared from major productions. From then on, he only picked up minor roles, working mostly in B-movies or as uncredited characters. His story became Hollywood's cautionary tale. Even if you're a master of make-believe, real-life lies can destroy everything. Behind every monster he played, there was a man who learned, too late, that some scripts can't be rewritten. Tierney. Jean Tierney defined classic Hollywood glamour, but her real life sometimes slipped into crime thriller territory. Tierney, under tremendous personal pressure from fame, struggled with fans who couldn't separate the person from the persona. The breaking point came when an obsessed fan managed to sneak past security and into Tierney's dressing room. Instead of panicking, Tierney fought back. She physically confronted the intruder, leaving the would-be stalker battered and running for the exit. Police reports documented an assault, but the story never made it to the tabloids. Instead, her studio's crisis team took charge, quietly encouraging authorities to drop the case. For Tierney, the incident left a scar. She became wary, hiring extra security and becoming more reclusive. But within Hollywood's inner circles, the story spread. Jean Tierney wasn't just another elegant face, but a woman who could handle herself, even if it meant crossing the line into self-defense with force. It was a private battle that revealed the high price of fame and just how far a star might go to protect her own safety, reputation, and sanity when the lights went out. Robert Walker. Robert Walker's piercing gaze and magnetic performances masked a man forever at war with himself and the law. Walker struggled publicly with mental health, which often spilled over into chaos. He was no stranger to handcuffs, regularly being picked up for public outbursts, breaking property, and causing scenes in restaurants or on the street. His arrests weren't tabloid fodder. thanks to aggressive studio fixers who specialized in wiping police blotters clean and paying off witnesses. Between movie shoots, Walker would sometimes vanish for days, with whispers swirling about stints in jail or hospital holds for exhaustion. Yet, he always seemed to reappear just in time for his next starring role, as if nothing had happened. Those who worked with him spoke of a man with a hair-trigger temper and a talent for self-destruction. Still, Walker's raw, haunted energy gave his roles unforgettable depth, especially when playing unstable or villainous characters. His run-ins with the law may have been buried, but the emotional turmoil always bled onto the screen. In old Hollywood, a good fixer could erase your record, but your demons always found their way into the frame. Hedy Lamarr was more than a breathtaking screen presence. She was a bona fide inventor with a mind that helped pave the way for modern wireless technology. But Lamarr's genius didn't stop her from developing a reputation as Hollywood's most glamorous shoplifter. Starting in the 1950s, she was repeatedly caught taking items from high-end stores, sometimes out of habit, sometimes out of thrill, and sometimes because, as friends claimed, she simply forgot to pay. Store owners, eager to stay in the good graces of a movie queen, often let her off with a warning, but not always. Arrest reports from California and Florida detail everything from stolen cosmetics to pricey jewelry. Her defense was always the same: misunderstanding, distraction, or forgetfulness. Behind the scenes, lawyers and publicists rushed to hush up each new incident, paying fines and persuading police to keep her name out of the news. Lamarr's story is a reminder that brilliance and beauty can hide surprisingly human flaws, and that even Hollywood's elite sometimes walk out of a store with more than just a receipt. So, what's the real story behind old Hollywood's golden glow? Sometimes it's crime, cover-ups, and chaos hiding in plain sight. Which of these criminal twists blew your mind? Drop your favorite in the comments, hit subscribe for more untold Hollywood tales, and remember, the real drama wasn't always on the screen. Sometimes it was walking straight down the red carpet.